Thank you all for joining me on this exciting journey into the heart of quantum psychology. I invite you to consider, for just a moment, the astonishing reality that the very way we focus our minds might be shaping the lives we lead. Have you ever wondered why two people can stand side by side, witness the same event, and walk away with entirely different perceptions? Or why certain goals and dreams seem to crystallize more readily the moment we pay serious attention to them? These questions guide us into one of the most compelling frontiers of modern thought, a merging of psychology and quantum principles that centers on the power of attention. We often imagine attention as something passive, a mere noticing or observing, but quantum psychology suggests there is nothing passive about it. In fact, paying attention can be likened to shining a spotlight onto the stage of our experiences. What this spotlight illuminates gains vibrancy and presence. What it leaves in the shadows can gradually fade from our awareness. Tonight, I'll be sharing 5 key triads, and in each, we will explore how attention acts as this spotlight, how it rewires our inner world, interacts with our environment, shapes social systems, and contributes to personal and collective transformations. By the end, I hope to leave you with a fresh perspective, that our thoughts and where we place them can be as influential as any tangible force. There is a reason I've chosen to begin with what I call the foundational triad, because it lays down the basic framework for how attention affects reality. This triad, consisting of the observer effect, quantum superposition, and the probabilistic nature of attention, invites us to see that everything we focus on, whether it's an idea, a feeling, or a plan for the future, shifts the probabilities of what will actually come to pass. Imagine you are peering through a camera lens, deciding which object or person comes into crisp focus and which parts of the background blur away. That is precisely the power of attention. It determines our vantage point, giving form and meaning to the endless possibilities swirling around us. To illuminate this concept further, consider the observer effect, a term borrowed from quantum physics to explain how the very act of observing a phenomenon can change its behavior. Scientists might debate the nitty-gritty of this in a laboratory setting, but we can all verify how it happens in our own everyday lives. If you suddenly become aware that your posture is being scrutinized, you may sit up a little straighter. If you realize you are the center of attention in a meeting, you might speak more carefully. Observing, in other words, transforms. When we apply this to our inner worlds, noticing our own thoughts can bring them into sharper relief, making us either more confident or more self-conscious depending on the nature of that internal dialogue. Through attention, the intangible becomes tangible. The next piece of the foundational triad is quantum superposition, which in physics describes particles existing in multiple states at once until observed or measured. In the realm of the mind, you could say our thoughts and feelings behave similarly. We can hold many potential ideas, memories, and emotions all at once, especially in those moments when our minds wander aimlessly. Only when we decide to focus on a specific line of thought does it become more dominant, nudging out other possibilities. For instance, let's say you're on the verge of making a major life decision. Your mind might be swirling with plans, anxieties, hopes, and fears all at once. The moment you choose to zero in on one particular plan, maybe you decide to take that new job in a different city, you reorganize your internal mental landscape around that choice. Superposition collapses. Attention harnesses your mental energy toward making that possibility real, and everything else recedes into a less likely scenario. Finally, the third aspect of our foundational triad is the probabilistic nature of attention. Even if focusing on something doesn't guarantee an outcome, it certainly increases the odds. If you devote time, energy, and curiosity to practicing the piano every single day, it's not an absolute certainty you'll become a concert pianist, but the likelihood grows significantly compared to if you barely touch the keys. This is where the magic of small shifts in attention can build into towering achievements over time. Each moment of conscious focus nudges the probability a bit further, reinforcing existing habits or, on the flip side, eroding them. These 3 core principles, observer effect, quantum superposition, and the probabilistic nature of attention, ask us to reconsider how each thought matters. They bring to life the idea that what we choose to notice or neglect sends ripples out across the fabric of our personal realities, ultimately sculpting the experiences we call our lives. If our mental spotlight has that kind of potential, then understanding how to direct it becomes a kind of art, one that marries the personal with the deeply universal. Next, we'll peel back more layers by looking at the functional triad of attention, where intention, feedback loops, and the constant hum of interference collide. But for now, as we close this first part of our exploration, hold in mind the idea that your attention is not merely a passing thought. It is a profound creative act, forging new pathways in mind and matter alike, and setting the stage for everything that follows. Now that we have a grasp of the foundational ideas behind attention in quantum psychology, let us delve deeper into how attention moves from theoretical potential to a living, breathing force in our daily lives. Here, we'll explore what I call the functional triad, which includes intention, feedback loops, and interference and noise. Think of the functional triad as the gears and levers behind the scenes, the mechanisms by which we harness or sometimes lose our powerful spotlight of focus. If the foundational triad explains what attention is, then the functional triad explains how it operates moment by moment to shape our reality. We begin with intention as directional attention, a concept that suggests our ability to set a goal or purpose can orient our mental spotlight in a specific direction. Imagine you have a camera and you're working on a photography project. Intention is like deciding the theme of the shoot. Are you capturing the playfulness of children at a park or the majestic lines of skyscrapers in the city? Once you set that intention, your eyes, mind, and camera lens all begin scanning the environment to find images that match your chosen theme. The same principle holds for our personal lives. If we wake up each morning with a clear idea, perhaps of being more compassionate, or pushing ourselves a bit harder at the gym, or learning a new skill, we train our attention to seek opportunities that align with that goal. This is not magic. It is the human mind's remarkable capacity to filter and notice whatever resonates with our internal sense of purpose. Next, in the functional triad, we have feedback loops of attention and experience. These loops occur because once our attention locks onto something and yields a certain experience, be it excitement, success, or even anxiety, we tend to reinforce that experience through repeated focus. Our brains are plastic, meaning they change structure and function based on repeated behaviors and thought patterns. For example, if you consistently pay attention to your physical well-being, monitoring how foods make you feel, noticing your posture, building in regular exercise, over time, your body and brain will adapt to support that heightened awareness. The flip side is just as true. If you frequently ruminate on stressors or negative self-talk, your neural pathways can become wired to spot the next worry or self-criticism. This cyclical pattern means that where you place your mental spotlight not only influences your experiences in the moment, but also forges the road ahead, creating an ongoing cycle of attention and its outcomes. However, no conversation about functional attention would be complete without addressing the final piece: interference and noise. We live in a world saturated with countless stimuli. At any given moment, our senses are bombarded by notifications, advertisements, and an endless stream of digital content. Even if your intention is strong and you're beginning to experience positive feedback loops, distractions can easily derail your spotlight of focus. One moment you're writing a crucial report, your mind fully engaged with the task, and the next your phone dings with a social media update, or your coworker stops by to chat about lunch. Attention is like a finite resource, and every interruption siphons away some of that resource. The key, then, is learning to navigate or minimize interference. This might mean creating an environment that is more conducive to deep work, such as closing extra browser tabs, putting your phone on silent, or allocating specific times of the day to check email. It might also involve developing internal techniques like mindfulness meditation, which trains the mind to recognize distractions without getting entangled in them. Much like tuning an old-fashioned radio, the process of refining attention is about dialing away from static so that the broadcast of your true intentions comes through clearly. All told, the functional triad reminds us that attention is not merely an inner phenomenon, but an active and constantly negotiated process. Our personal goals, repeated experiences, and the sea of distractions around us all converge to determine whether our spotlight burns bright or flickers. This triad is about empowerment. Once you know how intention functions, how feedback loops reinforce or weaken your mental states, and how noise competes for your precious focus, you can begin to seize control of the spotlight. You become the director of your own mental theater, choosing which actors step into the limelight and which ones remain in the dark. In the upcoming experiential triad, we'll shift from these mechanics to something more personal: how we aim our spotlight inward, outward, and across the dimension of time, and how each perspective reveals something unique about our reality. Now that we have explored how attention forms its foundation and how it functions as a driving mechanism in our daily lives, let us turn inward and outward to discover the profoundly personal dimensions of focusing our awareness. In what I like to call the experiential triad, we examine how attention is directed in three distinct ways: toward our inner world, toward the external environment, and across the tapestry of time. Understanding these three vantage points helps us appreciate that attention is not simply about what we notice right now, but also about how we relate to our own thoughts and feelings, the people around us, and the personal and collective stories that stretch from our memories of the past to our visions of the future. Focusing first on inner attention, consider what happens when you close your eyes and direct your awareness inward. Suddenly, a familiar yet often overlooked landscape emerges. Stray thoughts, fleeting emotions, perhaps even bodily sensations that you had pushed to the margins of consciousness. This inward gaze is powerful. It allows you to witness and sometimes even reshape your internal narrative. By turning your mental spotlight on a recurring anxious thought, for instance, you can choose to reframe it, question its validity, or simply observe it without judgment. This act of self-observation can foster resilience and self-understanding. Even in more formal practices like mindfulness meditation, the gentle but consistent effort of watching the breath or labeling your own thoughts can yield profound insights into how your mind operates. That clarity, in turn, empowers you to move through life with greater calm and intentionality. Yet attention does not begin and end inside our heads. Outer attention is equally vital, as it connects us to the environment in which we exist. Think about those moments when you truly sense the pulse of your surroundings: a lively conversation at a bustling cafe, the symphony of trees dancing in the wind, or simply the feeling of sunlight across your skin. When we devote our focus to the external world, we enrich our sense of place and community. We also become more attuned to subtle cues from other people: a momentary flicker of sadness in a friend's eyes, a hesitant tone that reveals uncertainty in a colleague's voice, or a spark of excitement that ignites in a loved one's laughter. These small signals often carry significant meaning, and by paying closer attention to them, we can nurture empathy, strengthen relationships, and even catch potential issues before they spiral. Indeed, outer attention can pave the way to deeper social connections and a sense of belonging to something larger than ourselves. A third dimension of attention is time itself, the capacity to direct our focus to the past, the present, or the future. We look to the past through memories, shaping our identities and extracting lessons that guide us forward. This reflective gaze might offer healing or closure as we re-examine old wounds or celebrate past accomplishments. We look to the future through the lens of dreams and plans, setting intentions for what we wish to become or achieve. The process of envisioning ourselves standing on a distant mountaintop, whether that mountaintop is a literal summit or a metaphor for a personal goal, can actually increase our motivation to climb. Most importantly, we embrace the present moment, that fleeting slice of time where our lives truly unfold. When we tune our attention to the here and now, we can savor the richness of experience, be it a bird's cheerful chirping at dawn or the laughter of our closest friend. By exercising temporal awareness, we choose where to rest our mental spotlight, on the lessons of yesterday, the wonders of today, or the possibilities of tomorrow. In weaving these three strands, inner, outer, and temporal, we begin to see that the field of our attention is vast and multifaceted. Each direction of focus reveals a different layer of reality, our innermost self, the shared social stage, and the grand timeline of our existence. How we balance these forms of awareness can shape our psychological well-being, our relationships, and our sense of purpose. Some of us naturally spend more time inspecting our internal landscape, while others are predominantly alert to the environment or fixated on future outcomes. There is no perfect equilibrium. Rather, the goal is to discover how to shift our attention skillfully among these three vantage points, harnessing the power of each as situations demand. When we develop this flexibility, the tapestry of our experience becomes more vivid, more nuanced, and more deeply fulfilling. This, in essence, is the beauty of the experiential triad. It reminds us that attention is always an act of weaving together our private worlds, the lively stage of our communities, and the continuum of time into a single, ever-evolving story. All of this reflection invites us to further wonder what happens when our attention extends beyond personal or even interpersonal domains and attempts to interact with broader realities. We must now step into an intriguing realm where attention can appear to shape matters beyond our own bodies and minds, a realm that spurs us to ask profound questions about how consciousness might engage with the physical world itself and the social structures that bind us all together. This curious and thought-provoking area is what we will explore next in the implicational triad. As we move from the personal sphere of the experiential triad, we find ourselves at the threshold of something equally captivating and perhaps a bit more mysterious. The implicational triad invites us to consider the wider ripples of attention, extending beyond our immediate thoughts and experiences into domains that blur the lines between the subjective and the objective. Here, we delve into three interwoven themes: how mind might interact with matter, how collective attention shapes social realities, and the ethical and philosophical challenges that arise when we recognize the formidable power of our focus. In this arena, questions multiply. Might our concentrated awareness subtly influence physical events? How does society collectively determine what gets noticed and what remains hidden in plain sight? And finally, what is our responsibility as individuals and groups once we acknowledge that our attention can steer the course of events? First, let us consider the possibility of mind-matter interaction. This concept often sparks both curiosity and skepticism. On the one hand, we have anecdotes and studies suggesting that focused intention can produce small but measurable impacts on random number generators or experiments where participants attempt to influence the growth of plants. On the other hand, such claims lie at the fringes of mainstream science, requiring rigorous research and more data to fully substantiate them. Yet, even if we take a modest view, it is intriguing to note that our mind's perceptions and emotions do affect our physiology. When we're anxious, our heart races, our palms sweat, and our immune response can be compromised. Conversely, when we immerse ourselves in a peaceful thought, we might slow our heartbeat or even shift patterns of neural firing in the brain. If our inner state can register in our own bodies, it opens the possibility, however small or subtle, that mental focus might also reach beyond our skin. While it's important to avoid sweeping conclusions, the notion that directed attention might interface in subtle ways with the physical world invites us to remain open-minded about the relationship between consciousness and matter, a relationship that might hold uncharted depths. We then turn our attention to the social sphere, examining how collective focus can generate realities that no single individual could create alone. We see examples in viral social media phenomena where a meme or an idea suddenly captivates millions and reshapes cultural narratives overnight. We see it in political movements that gain unstoppable momentum once the populace zeroes in on an injustice that can no longer be ignored. We witness it in moments of profound unity. Think of global meditation events aimed at fostering peace, where vast numbers of people align their attention on a shared intention. Whether or not these events produce measurable changes in the world is still an open question. Yet they undoubtedly produce changes in the hearts and minds of those who participate. Societies, in many ways, are built upon the collective focus of their members. Laws, traditions, economies, and cultural norms all hinge on where the collective spotlight rests. If enough people decide to pay attention to climate change, for instance, social policies might shift and technological innovations might accelerate. On the flip side, if an issue is systematically ignored, it often withers from public discourse. At this intersection of personal, interpersonal, and societal attention emerges a crossroads of ethics and philosophy. If every act of focusing on something might in some way nudge the future in that direction, does it not endow each of us with a certain responsibility? In a world flooded with information, the decision of what we pay attention to and what we disregard carries ethical weight. When groups mobilize around a unifying idea, whether constructive or destructive, our broader reality can transform accordingly. This compels us to reflect on our own values and motivations. Do we aim our mental spotlight on fear and outrage, feeding cycles of negativity, or do we turn our attention toward empathy, creation, and possibility? Do we allow ourselves to be drawn to divisive distractions, or do we consciously seek out knowledge and conversations that encourage growth and mutual understanding? Within the implicational triad, the boundaries between science, spirituality, and social activism become delightfully blurred. It is a place of immense wonder, where the study of consciousness tangles with our desire to better the world around us. This triad does not offer tidy, conclusive answers. Instead, it gives rise to powerful, open-ended questions. How much influence do we truly have on the material realm? How can we unite our collective attention to address the critical challenges of our time? What does it mean to navigate this power responsibly, ensuring we cultivate realities that uplift rather than harm? As we ponder these questions, we stand on the precipice of a deeper understanding of our capacity to shape our destinies, personally, socially, and perhaps even cosmically. And while these reflections may lead us into philosophical territory, their consequences are undeniably practical, which is exactly what we will examine in our next and final triad, where we shift our focus to real-world applications and explorations that integrate attention into the very fabric of our daily actions and innovations. Before we step into the conclusion of our journey, let us explore one more essential dimension of attention in quantum psychology. This final triad is the practical triad, the place where ideas from the foundational, functional, experiential, and implicational realms come together and make contact with real life. The practical triad emphasizes how we might harness the remarkable power of our mental spotlight for therapeutic breakthroughs, creative transformation, and scientific discovery. In essence, this triad answers the question, how do we apply what we have learned about attention to cultivate tangible, lasting change in ourselves and the world around us? Consider first the ways attention can be deliberately nurtured for therapeutic purposes. In fields like mindfulness-based therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy, the act of focusing on one's thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations can become a catalyst for healing. When we set out to break negative thought loops or heal from traumatic experiences, attention takes on the role of both a flashlight and a magnifying glass, illuminating the corners of our psyche that are often neglected or repressed. By training ourselves to notice triggers for anxiety or depression, perhaps an elevated heartbeat before a social interaction, or a rush of negative inner dialogue during stressful moments, we gain the power to step in, redirect our attention, and gently reshape our emotional responses. Over time, this practice rewires our neural pathways, forging new connections that support resilience and well-being. The brilliance of a therapeutic approach grounded in attention is that it does not rely on quick fixes or external rescue. Instead, it invites us to become our own advocates, recognizing the subtle changes that occur inside us throughout the day and learning how to guide those changes in more positive directions. Our ability to focus also has profound implications for creative and transformative practices. Whether we are talking about athletes training for peak performance, artists seeking immersion in a flow state, or everyday people looking to elevate their sense of purpose, the common denominator is purposeful attention. We know those experiences when time seems to suspend and we are wholly engaged in what we are doing, playing an instrument, writing a story, dancing, problem-solving, or designing something brand new. In those moments of flow, self-consciousness often melts away, and we are left with an intense clarity of mind that can yield extraordinary insights. On a broader scale, rituals and ceremonies across cultures have leveraged the power of group attention for centuries, channeling collective focus to foster bonding, healing, or communal visions of the future. From a simple daily act like lighting a candle while holding a loving intention, to vast religious gatherings or cultural celebrations, human beings have long recognized that when many minds converge in sustained focus, profound transformations can occur on both individual and collective levels. Yet our exploration would not be complete without acknowledging the scientific and experimental frontiers where attention in quantum psychology is being tested, measured, and better understood. In the realm of neuroscience, researchers use brain imaging technologies like fMRI or EEG to observe how focused awareness alters neural circuits. These studies are shedding new light on questions about neuroplasticity, emotional regulation, and even the creation of meaning itself. On the quantum side, some scientists are probing whether the so-called observer effect could extend, however subtly, into mind-matter interaction at microscopic levels. Though these experiments are often met with debate and calls for more rigorous data, they hint that consciousness may have an influence beyond the purely subjective. What we can say with more certainty is that rigorous investigations, whether they ultimately confirm or challenge the fringes of quantum consciousness, keep the conversation alive and evolving. They also remind us that our understanding of consciousness and attention, how they arise, how they shape reality, and how they might be harnessed, remains a frontier of human knowledge. The practical triad, then, is about bringing these threads together into the real, tangible tasks of human life, healing our psychological wounds, fueling our creative endeavors, and pushing the boundaries of scientific inquiry. It is also about the humble, yet profound notion that small, consistent shifts in attention can gradually rewrite the stories of our lives. A few minutes of mindfulness practice each morning can redirect the entire flow of our day, just as a short creative visualization each afternoon can stir up novel ideas for our personal or professional projects. Simple daily acts of paying attention can aggregate into life-changing transformations over time. We might even say that much of what we think of as self-improvement or spiritual growth boils down to how skillfully we engage with these practical aspects of attention over and over until new habits and insights become second nature. These practical applications may seem wide-ranging: therapy, art, science, spiritual ceremony, but they share a unifying principle. Intentional awareness can empower us to shape our inner landscapes and the outer realities we collectively inhabit. Whether it is a matter of self-healing, collaboration with others, or experimental exploration, the willingness to focus, to sustain that focus, and to channel it toward meaningful ends is the driving force behind most forms of genuine progress. The practical triad, therefore, stands as both a guidebook and an invitation, beckoning us to realize the extraordinary potential that attention offers if we can learn to harness it consistently and creatively. As we prepare to close, let us keep in mind that even the most powerful ideas mean little if they never move from the realm of theory into the everyday textures of our existence. This final triad encourages us not simply to understand attention, but to try it out and see what transformations arise. When we take these practices to heart, we become not only students of attention, but also its beneficiaries, opening doors to well-being, innovation, and the possibility that our shared future might be shaped by a greater awareness of this remarkable human capacity. Our exploration of attention in quantum psychology has taken us across multiple terrains, each one revealing new facets of how focus operates in our individual minds and in the collective forces that shape societies. From the initial wonder of the foundational triad, where we peered into the fundamental nature of attention itself, to the functional triad's look at how we direct, reinforce, or scatter our mental energies, we have discovered that attention is anything but a fleeting, inconsequential resource. We moved inward and outward in the experiential triad, examining how we balance self-reflection, engagement with our environment, and our orientation to past, present, and future. We then ventured into the implicational triad, where attention's role expanded from personal cognition to subtle influences on physical matter and powerful impacts on social realities. Finally, we arrived at the practical triad, recognizing how all these insights merge into concrete, everyday applications in the realms of therapy, creativity, and scientific research. In bringing this journey to a close, it is natural to wonder, what does all of this mean for how we live our daily lives? Perhaps the most important conclusion is that attention is a tool of remarkable versatility and potency, and it is always in our hands. By guiding this tool skillfully, we can nudge the probabilities of our own reality in directions that encourage healing, elevate our ability to create and innovate, and possibly even contribute to shifts in broader collective frameworks. When we wake up and decide to practice a mindful moment, or when we set a deliberate intention for the day, we are making more than a small personal choice. We are acknowledging that our focus can tilt the odds, influence our emotions, shape our relationships, and ripple out into the wider world in ways we might never fully measure. In practical terms, this can translate into a series of small but meaningful commitments, carving out minutes each day for silence or reflection, consciously noticing the good in ourselves or others, giving our all to the tasks we deem worthwhile, and stepping away from noise that does not serve our deepest values. While it may be simple, it is not trivial. In fact, if there is any single message at the heart of quantum psychology, it is that even the tiniest shift in awareness can reverberate through multiple layers of reality, much like the flutter of a butterfly's wings that becomes a storm half a world away. There is great responsibility there, but also profound hope and possibility. These reflections offer a reminder that while we share the same world, we each inhabit slightly different perceptual universes. Where we choose to aim our mental spotlight can bring warmth and clarity to new possibilities or leave them in the darkness of our neglect. If we can remember to cultivate attention as a daily discipline, to refine it through practice and self-reflection, and to direct it toward growth, empathy, and shared learning, we might find ourselves not only improving our own inner landscapes, but also enriching the communal spaces we occupy with others. Ultimately, attention is both gift and promise. It is given to us by virtue of being conscious, and it promises to reshape our internal and external realities if we learn to guide it with both discipline and love. May this exploration in quantum psychology encourage you to experiment a little more boldly with how you focus, and to remain curious about what unexpected doors might open as a result. May it inspire you to notice the small wonders that occur when your mind becomes a steady beam of light rather than a wavering glow. And may it remind all of us that the act of paying attention is not merely something we do, but something we become, a vessel through which the truths of our minds and the mysteries of the cosmos can converse and co-create in ways we are only just beginning to imagine.